Elias Mercer traced the rim of his coffee mug with a finger, watching the steam rise into the cold air of Pinnacle Observatory's viewing platform. Outside, the wind howled against the reinforced glass dome, carrying snowflakes that dissolved upon contact. He was alone again 3 months, to his year-long research residency at the most remote astronomical facility in the Northern Hemisphere. "Another night? Just you and me," he murmured to the massive telescope that dominated the room. The instrument's polished surface reflected his tired face, 32 years old. Dark eyes underscored by shadows, 3 days' worth of stubble. Pinnacle had been his dream posting once. Now the isolation pressed against him like the thousands of tons of granite beneath the observatory. Tonight marked the beginning of the Lyrid meteor shower, coinciding with a rare planetary alignment, the very phenomenon he had come here to study. As the sun set beyond the jagged mountain range, Elias calibrated his instruments and prepared for a long night of observations. Equipment check complete. Recording initiated, he spoke into his recorder. Then, softer, almost to himself, "Wish you could see this." Dad, his father, once a promising astronomer himself, had never witnessed anything like this alignment. The first meteors began to streak across the sky, brilliant flashes of light cutting through the darkness. Elias worked methodically, recording data, adjusting settings, but found himself increasingly distracted by an unfamiliar sensation prickling at the base of his skull. By midnight, the shower had intensified into a spectacular display. Eli stepped away from his instruments and walked to the observation deck's edge, palms flat against the cold glass. The sensation had grown stronger, a humming presence that seemed to vibrate in harmony with the meteor shower. "Hey, what am I even doing up here?" he whispered, unplanned words escaping him. "Tracking falling rocks while everyone else is down there, living." He pressed his forehead against the glass, closing his eyes. "Is anyone out there feeling as lost as I am?" The wind outside suddenly calmed, an impossible stillness falling over the mountain. Elias opened his eyes, startled by the abrupt change. The meteors continued to fall, but in complete silence, as if the world had been placed on mute. Then, a voice like the gentle rustling of leaves. "I have been lost for centuries longer than you can imagine." Elias jerked away from the glass, heart hammering. "Hello," he called out, scanning the empty observatory. "Is someone there?" "I am here, and not here," came the response, seeming to originate from everywhere and nowhere. "Your loneliness called to mine across the void." "Who are you?" Elias demanded, trying to locate the source of the voice that seemed to bypass his ears and speak directly into his mind. "My name would be unpronounceable in your language, but you may call me Niera. I exist in what you might call a parallel dimension, one that occasionally aligns with yours during certain cosmic events." As if to emphasize her words, a meteor blazed across the sky, brighter than all the others, leaving a trail of purple-tinted light. "Impossible," Elias stammered, scientific mind racing for explanations. "Is it? Your scientists theorize about multiple dimensions. I simply exist in one adjacent to yours, against all rational judgment." Elias found himself drawn to the voice, gentle, melodic, carrying a familiar loneliness that mirrored his own. "Why can I hear you now?" he asked, his voice softening. "The celestial alignment thins the barriers between our realities. Your emotion, your specific frequency of loneliness, resonated perfectly with mine, like calling to like across the vastness." Elias watched another purple-streaked meteor and felt something he hadn't experienced in years: wonder. "Will you stay?" he asked, surprising himself with the question. The voice grew warmer. "For as long as the alignment lasts." "Would you like to talk, Elias Mercer? It has been so long since I've had a real conversation," and for the first time in months, Elias smiled. "Each night for a week." Elias rushed through his official observations to make time for Niera. Their conversations flowed easily, across dimensional boundaries, her voice growing clearer as the celestial alignment strengthened. She explained how her species, the Luminarans, existed as energy beings capable of perceiving emotional frequencies across vast distances. So you're essentially reading my mind? Elias asked one evening, reclining in his chair as meteor trails painted purple streaks across the night sky. Not exactly. Nyera's voice whispered through his consciousness. I sense emotional resonance, the vibrations of your feelings. Your words I hear because I've attuned specifically to you. And what do my emotions sound like? He smiled, finding it increasingly natural to speak aloud to the empty room, like a symphony playing in a minor key, beautiful but tinged with melancholy. There's passion in your scientific curiosity, warmth in your memories of home, and underneath it all is that persistent loneliness that called to me. Elias felt his cheeks warm. You make me sound more interesting than I am. You underestimate yourself? Her voice carried a gentle laugh. Would you like to see what I look like? Before he could respond, the air before him shimmered. Particles of light coalesced, forming the silhouette of a woman's slender, graceful with distinctive features that seemed both alien and familiar. Her translucent skin had a subtle purple luminescence, hair floating around her face as if suspended in water. Though the image was spectral, her eyes were startlingly real, deep violet orbs that held ancient wisdom. Elias's breath caught. You're beautiful, he whispered, reaching out instinctively before stopping himself. Knowing his hand would pass through the projection. This is a mere approximation of my form. She explained her projected image, gesturing with delicate movements. On my world, Lumina, we appeared more solid to each other, though still composed of energy rather than matter. Appeared. Past tense? He asked, noticing her choice of words. The projection flickered, her expression turning sorrowful. Lumina exists now only in memory. Our star began to destabilize centuries ago. While most of my kind chose to merge with the cosmic consciousness, some of us, like myself, chose to preserve our individual identities and wander the dimensions. Elias felt an ache in his chest for her loss. You've been alone all this time? Alone but not inactive, she corrected gently. I've witnessed the birth of stars, the evolution of countless species, the rise and fall of civilizations across multiple dimensions. I've observed much, but rarely connected. Until now, their conversation lasted until dawn, when the rising sun weakened their connection. As Nyera's image faded, Elias realized he'd shared more of himself with this interdimensional being than with anyone in years his childhood dreams. His father's death, his growing disillusionment with academic politics that had driven him to this isolated post. In the following days, they developed a ritual. Each night, Elias would bring a book of poetry or play music from his collection, sharing pieces of human culture. In return, Nyera would project visions of worlds she'd visited, crystalline cities orbiting gas giants, oceans of liquid metal reflecting binary suns, forests of sentient fungi communicating through spore patterns. One night, as they watched a particularly intense meteor shower together, Nyera's projection reached toward him, and Elias felt the ghost of a sensation on his skin, like the softest brush of fingertips. Did you just... He started, eyes widening. The barrier between our dimensions is thinning. She explained, looking as surprised as he felt. The alignment is growing stronger than I anticipated. Is that dangerous? Elias asked, though part of him hoped for the possibility her answer implied. Not dangerous. Nyera's form glowed brighter, her voice tinged with excitement. But unprecedented in my experience? Elias, I believe I could potentially manifest more fully in your dimension, temporarily, at least. You could be here? Physically, perhaps. Her image flickered with uncertainty. But such a crossing would require tremendous energy. I would need to draw on the power of the alignment at its peak. Elias felt his heart race at the possibility. In the short time they'd known each other, Nyera had become more important to him than anyone had been in years. The thought of actually touching her, of her being truly present... When? He asked simply. 3 days, when the alignment reaches perfect conjunction with the meteor shower's peak? But Elias, her expression grew serious. I cannot predict what might happen. No Luminaran has ever attempted to fully materialize in another dimension. He reached toward her translucent form, his fingers passing through the light. Some risks are worth taking. The observatory became a flurry of activity as Elias prepared for the alignment's peak. By day, he maintained his official research, dutifully recording data for the university. By night, he and Naira theorized about the conditions needed for her manifestation. The electromagnetic field generators could amplify the energy from the meteor shower, Elias suggested, sketching diagrams that Naira observed with interest. If we realign them to focus on a single point, your science and our energy manipulation principles are not so different, Kira noted, her projection hovering over his shoulder. The challenge will be creating a stable matrix that can support molecular cohesion, their intellectual partnership, evolved alongside deeper feelings neither could deny. During quiet moments, Naira would share memories of her existence, the joy of soaring through nebulae, absorbing stellar radiation that tasted like what humans might call honey, the communion with others of her kind through pure emotional exchange in turn. Elias described earthly pleasures she had never experienced: the sensation of rain on skin, the taste of dark chocolate, the comfort of human embrace. If this works, he said one evening, what's the first thing you want to experience physically? Her projection smiled, violet eyes brightening. Touch, she answered without hesitation. To feel connection through physical contact is something I've observed across countless species but never known myself. The night before the peak alignment, powerful storm descended on the mountain. Wind howled around the observatory dome, snow accumulating against its base. The ferocity matched the growing intensity between them: anticipation, hope, and unspoken fear that their attempt might fail. As lightning illuminated the room, Naira's projection appeared more vivid than ever. Elias, there's something I must tell you before tomorrow, she began, her voice carrying unusual gravity. If I successfully cross over, I cannot predict how long I can maintain physical form. It might be hours, days, or you might be trapped here permanently, he finished, understanding her concern. She nodded. Or the opposite, the attempt might drain so much of my energy that I would need to retreat far from this dimensional threshold to recover. We might never speak again. Elias fell silent, the implications washing over him. After only 2 weeks, the thought of losing their connection felt unbearable. Yet keeping her from this experience out of his own attachment seemed selfish. It has to be your choice, he finally said. I want you here more than I've wanted anything in years, but not at the cost of your freedom or existence. Naira's projection moved closer, her light casting purple shadows across his features. My existence has spanned eons, Elias. I've watched galaxies spiral through space and civilizations rise from dust. Yet in all that time, I've never felt drawn to anyone as I am to you. Her form shimmered, extending what appeared to be a hand toward his face. This time he felt more than a ghost of sensation. A definite warmth caressed his cheek, making his breath catch. The barriers are already weakening, she whispered. Tomorrow, when the alignment peaks, I will attempt the crossing, not just for the experience, but because what exists between us deserves more than ephemeral whispers across dimensions. Lightning flashed again, and in that moment her form seemed almost solid, a woman of violet light standing before him, eyes filled with emotions that transcended human language. Elias stepped forward, moving his hand to where hers would be. For a brief, electric moment, he felt resistance, not the empty air he expected, but something substantive, like pressing against a magnetic field. Tomorrow then, he said, voice thick with emotion. Whatever happens, these days with you have been worth everything. As the storm raged outside, they remained together in silence, two beings from different dimensions, hovering at the threshold of possibility. While meteors continued their silent journey across the night sky, the day of the peak. Alignment dawned clear and crisp after the storm. As if the universe itself had cleared the stage for what was to come, Elias moved with purpose, reconfiguring the observatory's equipment according to their plan. The university would question the power surge and altered settings, but such concerns felt distant and unimportant now. By afternoon, he had transformed the central observation platform into what looked like a scientific experiment crossed with a ritual space. Electromagnetic field generators formed a perfect circle, connected to the observatory's main power supply. In the circle's center, he'd placed a small meteorite fragment, one he'd found years ago and always kept as a good luck charm. The meteorite contains elements from both our realms, he explained to the air. Though Niara's presence wasn't yet perceptible, it might help anchor you. The sunset approached. Elias felt the familiar prickling sensation at the base of his skull that preceded Niara's manifestation. The air in the observatory grew charged, static electricity making the hair on his arms stand on end. "I'm here," her voice whispered, weaker than usual. "Preparing for transition requires much of my energy." Her projection appeared, but flickered unstably. "Are you all right?" Elias asked, concerned by her diminished presence. "The process of gathering enough energy to materialize is taxing," she admitted. "I've been absorbing power from the meteor shower since dawn." Dusk fell, and with it came the first meteors, brighter than any night before. They streaked across the sky in brilliant purple arcs, their paths seemingly directed toward the observatory as if drawn by Niara's presence. "It's starting," Elias whispered, activating the field generators. They hummed to life, creating a low, resonant tone that vibrated through the floor. Niara's projection moved to the circle's center, hovering above the meteorite. "When the alignment reaches its zenith, I'll channel everything I have into manifesting. The moment will be brief. You must help ground me." "How?" Elias asked, hands hovering uncertainly at the controls. "Touch," she said simply. "When I begin to materialize, physical contact will help anchor my energy to this dimension." "But Elias," her form flickered worryingly, "the process will create a temporary rift. There's a small possibility it could pull you toward my dimension instead." Elias met her gaze steadily. "I'm not afraid." As night deepened, the meteor shower intensified to spectacular levels. Through the observatory dome, the sky appeared to be raining fire. The instruments registered unprecedented readings, their screens flashing warnings that Elias ignored. At precisely midnight, Elias felt the shift. The air pressure changed suddenly, his ears popping as if he'd descended a mountain in seconds. The space within the circle began to distort, light bending around an invisible point that grew steadily larger. Niara's projection expanded, purple light filling the circle as she spread her ethereal arms. "It's time," her voice resonated, no longer just in his mind, but vibrating physically in the air. "Whatever happens, know that finding you was worth crossing the void." The meteorite at the circle's center began to glow. First red, then white-hot. The rift expanded, forming what looked like a vertical pool of liquid starlight. Niara's form dissolved into it, the projection disappearing as the portal pulsed with intensity. Alarms blared as the observatory's power system strained. Lights flickered, computers shut down, but the electromagnetic field held stable. Powered by the cosmic energy pouring through the rift, a hand solid, with a delicate purple hue, emerged from the portal, reaching outward with trembling fingers. Without hesitation, Elias stepped forward and grasped it, feeling real warmth and texture against his palm. The contact sent a shockwave through the room. Elias felt himself pulled forward, his vision swimming with stars. For one terrifying moment, he existed in both places, half in his world, half glimpsing a realm of pure energy and light that must be Niara's dimension. Then, with a sound like thunder, the portal collapsed. The force threw Elias backward. He hit the floor hard, disoriented and gasping for breath. The electromagnetic generators sparked and died, plunging the observatory into darkness, save for the emergency lights. "Niara?" he called out, panic rising in his throat as he scrambled to his feet. Niara. In the circle center, illuminated by the purple light still emanating from her skin, stood a woman. Not a projection or a being of pure light, but solid flesh. Her eyes opened, those same violet orbs he'd come to know, wide with wonder and disbelief. "Elias," she spoke, her voice no longer ethereal but physical, vibrating through air rather than consciousness. "I feel..." She swayed, clearly unused to physical form, and he rushed forward to catch her before she fell. The moment his arms encircled her was everything they'd imagined: warmth, solidity, the simple miracle of touch. "You're here," he whispered against her hair, which shimmered with subtle bioluminescence. "You're really here." Ayera lifted her hands, real hands with 5 slender fingers, and stared at them in amazement before touching his face. "So warm," she marveled. "I never knew warmth could feel like this." As meteors continued to fall outside, they remained locked in their first embrace, neither willing to let go for fear the miracle might evaporate. Dawn found them still in the observatory, huddled together beneath a blanket as Elias explained the basics of her new physical existence. Niera experienced everything with childlike wonder: the texture of fabric against skin, the taste of water, the weight of gravity. "Your body seems human," Elias observed, "but the purple luminescence... ... A reflection of my original energy signature," Niera explained, examining her arm where light pulsed beneath translucent skin. "I believe I've manifested in a form your dimension can sustain, yet retained my essential nature." Throughout that first day, they cataloged discoveries. Niera could eat and drink, though she required less sustenance than a human. She emitted a soft glow that intensified with her emotions. She possessed knowledge spanning millennia, yet struggled with simple physical tasks like using utensils or walking steadily. By evening, a new concern emerged. The alignment was fading, and with it, Niera's radiance had begun to dim slightly. "Am I disappearing?" she asked, a tremor in her voice as she looked at her hands, now less luminous than before. Elias ran tests using the observatory's equipment. "Not disappearing," he concluded, studying the readings, "but changing. Your energy signature is stabilizing, adapting to our dimension's physics. Will I lose my connection to what I was?" Fear edged her voice the first time Elias had heard this emotion from her. He took her hands, still warm and solid in his. "I don't think so. But we're in uncharted territory. No one has ever done what you've done." That night, beneath the continuing meteor shower, now returned to its normal intensity, they stood on the observatory's external viewing platform. Niera tilted her face to the stars, her home in a very real sense. "Do you regret coming here?" Elias asked softly, the question he'd been afraid to voice. She turned to him, her purple eyes reflecting starlight. "In my existence, I've witnessed the birth and death of stars, the collision of galaxies, wonders beyond human imagination. Yet in all those eons, I never felt what I've experienced in these few hours with you." Moving with newfound grace, Niera stepped closer, her hands finding his face. The intimate contact sent warmth cascading through them both. "Physical sensation is overwhelming," she whispered. Their first kiss was tentative, exploratory, the meeting of two beings who had crossed impossible distances to find each other. Her lips tasted of stardust and possibility. When they drew apart, Elias noticed tears on her cheeks, glowing with the same purple luminescence as her skin. "You're crying," he said, touching one gently. "Another new experience?" She smiled through tears. Emotions made physical. That night they discovered each other in all ways possible, the merging of two beings who had already connected mind to mind. Now finding harmony in physical expression. Their intimacy transcended the merely physical. When they touched, Elias occasionally glimpsed flashes of her original realm, while Niera experienced the full spectrum of human sensation for the first time. In the quiet aftermath, as they lay intertwined, Niera placed her hand over his heart. "I can feel your life force," she murmured. "So different from my own, yet somehow harmonious." "What happens now?" Elias asked, the future suddenly vast and uncertain. His research assignment would end eventually. The world below the mountain would ask questions about the violet-skinned woman who appeared from nowhere. Niera was silent for a long moment. "I don't know," she admitted finally. "In all my centuries of existence, I never planned beyond the crossing." This, she gestured to her physical form. To him, to the room around them, was the impossible dream. "We'll figure it out together," Elias promised. There's an entire world for you to explore, and ... hesitated, then continued. There are still stars to study. Your knowledge combined with our technology, we could make discoveries no one has imagined. She smiled, the glow beneath her skin pulsing brighter with hope. A cosmic ambassador, living between worlds. Exactly, he said, inspired by the idea. Not trapped in either dimension, but bridging both. As morning approached, they stood together at the observatory's dome, watching the last of the meteors fade from view. The alignment that had brought them together was ending, but what they had created would continue. When I was drifting alone through the cosmos, Neera said, I sometimes wondered if two souls from different dimensions could ever truly connect. If the void between worlds was simply too vast to cross. Elias wrapped his arms around her, feeling the subtle vibration of her energy harmonizing with his own. Some distances are meant to be bridged, he said. Outside, the first light of dawn touched the mountain peaks. Inside, their two forms cast a single shadow, one from beyond the stars, now inseparable. Neera turned in his embrace, her violet eyes holding the wisdom of eons and the fresh wonder of new beginnings. I crossed the void for you, she whispered. Now, show me what it means to live. As sunrise flooded the observatory with golden light, Elias kissed her again, no longer a being of pure energy, not quite human but perfectly uniquely herself. Together, they stood at the threshold of something entirely new, a convergence of worlds that began with a lonely whisper into the wind, and became a love that transcended dimensions.